Imagine a place so hot it feels like the ground is on fire. A place where it almost never rains, and the wind stirs up thick clouds of sand, making it hard to see anything ahead. This is the desert, a place that seems far too challenging for any living being. But right in the middle of this daunting landscape, there exists a small hero, Carleo the cactus. Carleo is no ordinary cactus. He was born and raised in the desert, facing everything this harsh place throws at him. From sandstorms that push him around to heat so intense it dries up the tiniest drops of water, Carleo has faced it all. But despite all the challenges, he never gives up. Even in the worst storms, Carleo stands firm, his deep roots anchoring him to the ground, with a special strength that helps him endure. Want to know Carleo's secret? He has immense courage and an ironclad patience. He waits for the right moment, conserves his energy, and instead of despairing, he prepares for whatever may come. This is how he survives and shows everyone that, even in the harshest places, there is always a way to be strong and grow. Carleo teaches us that with resilience and hope, even the most inhospitable place can become a stage for great accomplishments. Shall we discover how Carleo faces these challenges? Imagine a place where the sky is a piercing blue, with not a cloud in sight to offer relief. This is where Carleo lives, the most determined cactus in the desert. He didn't choose to be there, but he's learned to adapt with a strength that impresses even the toughest plants around. In the vastness of the desert, Carleo stands out with his robust stem and spines that not only protect him from hungry animals, but also help him hold onto every precious drop of water he finds. Carleo knows the desert is unforgiving. Every day, the sun rises with relentless fury, casting its rays like tiny embers onto the cracked, dry ground. By noon, the sand nearly sizzles, and the air seems to ripple with heat. There is no shade, no refreshing breeze, just the hot, suffocating silence. For many, living in such a place would be impossible, but Carleo has a secret. He's learned to save precious resources for difficult times. Carleo has a unique system for storing water inside himself. He's like a small green fortress, collecting everything he needs to survive for weeks, even months, without a single drop of rain. And through this, he teaches one of the desert's most important lessons, the importance of being prepared. Carleo shows us that no matter where we are or how hard things may seem, we can always adapt, conserve strength, and wait for the right moment to use our most precious resources. This lesson goes deeper than it seems. Carleo holds an ancient wisdom, almost ancestral, that he shares with other cacti that occasionally appear along his path. He knows the desert was once a sea and that one day it might be again, but as the world changes around him, he keeps moving forward, growing ever more resilient. On a starry night, he remembers all the times he endured the endless heat with pride. Every moment of waiting, every drop saved was a wise choice. And so, he grows stronger, silent, resilient, and ready for the next challenges. Carleo teaches us that sometimes the secret lies in learning to rely on ourselves. In knowing we can endure, and that even when the world seems against us, we have the strength to save, to wait, and to grow with what we have. One day, which seemed like any other in the desert, Carleo wakes up and senses the air is heavier than usual. He knows what this means. A sandstorm is forming. And it's not just any storm. The wind starts blowing fiercely, lifting tiny particles of sand that soon form a thick cloud, vast enough to cover the sun. For Carleo, sandstorms are common, but each brings a unique, challenging experience. He has been through many in his solitary life in the desert, but he knows each storm demands a new dose of strength and endurance. The wind pushes him from side to side, his spines vibrate, and he must cling to the ground with all his energy. No other cactus or plant is nearby to share the impact. It's just him, facing the desert's fury head-on. As the wind howls and sand envelopes him, Carleo stays firm. He knows that if he falters, he'll be uprooted and carried away by the storm, but he trusts in his roots. Deep and well-secured, they hold him safe, like strong arms supporting him. And here, Carleo reveals another powerful lesson, the importance of having firm roots, something that connects us to what's essential, even when everything around us seems to be falling apart. The storm lasts for hours, maybe even days. In the desert, time has its own rhythm, ignoring human minutes and hours. Carleo closes his eyes, the tiny pores on his surface that help him breathe, and channels all his energy into staying there, upright, even against the strongest winds. At times, he feels like he can't go on. What if this is the storm that will carry me away, he wonders, but then something within him urges him to hold on a little longer. And this is how Carleo faces his fears, one moment at a time, one gust of wind at a time. He remains present, breathing deeply with the little air the desert offers him, believing that each second of resistance will make him stronger. Finally, as the storm begins to wane and the sand settles to the ground, Carleo rises, covered in grains of sand but victorious. He has survived once again. And there, as the sun reappears on the horizon, he feels even more grounded, more solid, more a part of the desert. He looks around and realizes that the storm, as brutal as it was, didn't defeat him. On the contrary, it only strengthened his connection to the earth, deepening his roots and his confidence in himself. Now Carleo understands that each storm is not merely an obstacle but an opportunity for growth. He feels something has changed within him, that he is stronger and more confident. With this, he shares another precious lesson with us. In life storms, what truly matters is having solid roots and believing that each difficulty is a chance to become more resilient and more connected to who we truly are. After the last storm, Carleo sensed a shift within himself. Now more than ever, he understood the value of his inner strength and the power of standing firm, even in the worst conditions. However, the desert still had another lesson to teach our cactus friend, the lesson of patience. Despite all his resilience, Carleo had a dream. One day he too wanted to bloom. But blooming in the desert isn't easy. Carleo would occasionally see some smaller plants attempting to create tiny flowers, but few succeeded. The conditions were too harsh, and many didn't have the strength to sustain the growth of a flower for long. Still, Carleo held on to this desire, deep within him like a small seed in his heart. He dreamed of blooming, bringing beauty and color to the desert. It wasn't just about appearance. It was the desire to express everything he had learned and overcome until then. For him, to bloom was a symbol of everything he represented, his strength, patience, and resilience. Years, perhaps decades, passed, and Carleo continued growing, enduring the heat, weathering storms, and storing water in his sturdy body. Every dawn, he looked to the horizon and thought, could my moment to bloom be near? But he knew that, in the desert, time had its own rhythm and that forcing things could have consequences. He understood that if he tried to bloom too soon, he might not have enough resources to sustain the flower for long. And so, he chose to wait. One day, after a rare rain shower fell over the desert, Carleo felt something different. The rain filled his roots in a way they never had before, and he realized his body was ready for something new. He felt energy coursing through him, as if his very spirit whispered, "It's time, Carleo. The moment has come." With the patience of one who has waited a lifetime, Carleo began slowly to create his first flower. It was a slow, silent process, but he knew that every second of waiting had been worth it. The flower grew, delicate and gentle, contrasting with the raw strength of his spiny body. It was a rare and beautiful sight, something the desert rarely offered. Carleo felt that with every petal that opened, he was showing the world his entire story, his resilience, his wisdom. And when the flower finally fully opened, the desert stopped. It was as if even the wind was afraid to disrupt the scene. Animals and small insects, who rarely ventured near, approached, drawn by the rare beauty of the flower. Carleo had transformed into something new, something beyond just a cactus in the desert. He was now a living testament that with patience and resilience, any dream, no matter how distant it seems, can bloom at the right moment. In that moment, Carleo felt a deep peace. He didn't know how long his flower would last, but it didn't matter. What truly mattered was that he had waited, believed, and respected life's natural rhythm. He knew his purpose was complete, and that, regardless of anything else, he would always be the cactus that bloomed. After his great moment of blooming, Carleo enjoyed a brief period of peace. Temperature stayed mild, and he could feel the energy the flower had left within him, as if each petal had deposited a piece of strength inside him. However, Carleo also knew that the desert is unpredictable. Comfort and calm never last forever. He had learned, over his lifetime, that difficult phases are inevitable and that one must always be prepared. And that's exactly what he did. Even after the flower faded and the desert returned to its arid rhythm, Carleo continued storing water and energy in his stem. He understood that, to survive, he needed to use every resource wisely. And this meant, above all, knowing how to conserve. Shortly after, Carleo realized that his decision to save had been wise. A long drought began, and the desert became more severe than ever. The ground cracked around him, and the heat increased daily, turning the soil into a hot, nearly unbearable surface. Anyone might think it was impossible to live there, but Carleo had spent too much time in that environment to be shaken. He felt his thirst grow, but he also felt the strength of all the water he had saved during calmer days. Each drop accumulated inside him was now his only resource, his true treasure. While other plants around him quickly withered, Carleo stood firm, relying on his preparation. He didn't know how long this drought would last, but he was certain he could survive. After all, he had learned to endure, to face challenges, and above all, to trust his ability to adapt. During the most arid days, Carleo shows us another great lesson: the importance of conserving our strength for times of hardship. He teaches us that true resilience is not just about withstanding challenges, but also knowing how to prepare for them in advance. For Carleo, every drop saved is a victory over the desert, a way to keep growing and overcoming, even when the environment around him tries to drain him. And so, Carleo carries on, each day conquered a testament that he is on the right path. With every dawn, he realizes he is still there, standing, unshakable and resilient. He knows that the drought will one day end, but his strength will endure. He is a living witness that, even in the most extreme conditions, preparation and patience can help us overcome any adversity. So while the sun keeps burning and the hot wind blows relentlessly, Carleo remains grounded, saving each drop, every bit of energy, with an almost meditative calm. After surviving countless sandstorms, droughts, and unimaginable challenges, Carleo finds himself in a moment of reflection. Night falls over the desert, and the sky is a vast stretch of stars. To many, the desert at night might seem like a lonely, even frightening place, but for Carleo, after all this time, he sees this solitude as a gift. He gazes at the stars and reflects on his journey, every hardship overcome, and every drop of water he has saved over the years. He realizes that his strength doesn't come only from physical endurance, but from something much deeper, his inner strength. Carleo understands that, throughout his life, it was the desert itself that shaped him. Each adversity was a piece he fit into his growth. He evolved from a young, unprepared cactus into a being capable of facing the harshest conditions. In every challenge, he found an opportunity to strengthen himself. And now, looking back, he realizes that everything he went through prepared him for this moment of peace and wisdom. In the desert silence, Carleo reveals to us one last lesson: true strength comes from within. It's a kind of energy that only reveals itself in the most difficult situations, when we're forced to look inward and find reserves we didn't even know existed. For Carleo, every storm, every wave of heat, and every moment of drought were ways for the desert to teach him to be strong, to trust in his own ability to adapt and thrive, regardless of external conditions. This inner strength is what allows Carleo to keep growing, even when everything around him seems to be falling apart. He doesn't need ideal circumstances to survive. He has learned that, with patience and persistence, he can overcome any challenge. In this way, Carleo inspires us to look inward, to find in ourselves the strength needed to face our own deserts. As the night advances and the desert cools, Carleo feels at peace. He knows that no matter how many difficulties may still lie ahead, he has within him the capacity to endure. He has become the cactus that bloomed, the one that faced the storms and survived the droughts. He is a living symbol that, even in the most adverse situations, there is always a way to persevere and to discover the beauty within resilience. Carleo leaves us then with this final message: Just as he did, we too are capable of blooming in the desert. Even when everything seems difficult, even when we feel the world is against us, there is within each of us a silent, powerful strength, waiting to be revealed. With each obstacle, we have the chance to grow, to learn, and to become stronger and wiser versions of ourselves. And like Carleo the cactus, we too can face our deserts and discover that, no matter how barren the path may seem, there is always a way to bloom. So, did you enjoy our hero's journey, Carleo the cactus? After everything he's faced in the desert, sandstorms, unbearable heat, and even drought, he's shown that with patience and courage, we can endure and even bloom during the hardest times. But the desert still holds many other secrets, and who knows what else Carleo and his friends might face out there. So if you want to keep following stories full of adventure and valuable lessons, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and don't forget to comment below on any other stories you'd like to see here. The world is full of surprising heroes like Carleo, and I can't wait to share more with you.